Welcome to the Nailed It Wall.
Welcome to the Nailed It Wall. I'm Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.
And I'm Miss Scofield.
We have reached episode 69. It's a kind of an amazing celebration, and we haven't done a podcast since November, so
sad.
We have a lot of catching up.
So sad.
The sad thing is your students have produced more podcasts than we have, and one of our goals going this summer was to tell the story of teachers' lives during the summer. So this episode, we're going to recap the year. It's going to be hard to crunch November to May in one podcast, but we're back. We say that a lot, but the students really inspire us. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. All right, Miss Scofield. I mean, we can't even go with a nailed it, failed it wall. So to get into this, we just got to kind of recap our years, the highlights of our year, and this past group of 8th graders were your babies. This is your favorite group that you've ever had.
No offense to previous years. You were all amazing.
No offense, but just kind of a recap how the year ended and just your glow and just how much you love these 8th graders.
Oh man, that's a tough thing to do in just a 30-minute podcast. However, I don't even know, maybe it's 20 minutes. I'm not sure what we're doing any day anymore. It was the best year of teaching that I've ever had. And as you said, I said many, many times to my students, collectively, as a whole group, it's my favorite group of kids that I've ever had. Now, I have a lot of kids that I've really, really loved throughout the years that I'm still very close to, that are some of my favorite human beings. But as a whole, this group every single day was a joy to be in there with. Their genuine spirit, their kindness, they're just, I cannot even begin to describe that feeling of just connecting so fully with a group of kids in your class, and what that does for classroom community and just everyone's level of belonging. I don't even know. I mean, where to begin? What would you say?
Well, let's go to the senior walk. So you had the COVID group that never really got that closure. And I think that day you were just walking on clouds. It was just kind of exciting. I know that's not about your 8th graders, but
it is in a weird way.
And I loved like their jealousy of like when you had some of those seniors come back and, just their pride in the classroom. So kind of touch on, what those seniors coming back to campus meant.
So, shout out to Coach Connolly at our school. He brought the senior walk to our school. Well done. My daughter's senior year and his daughter's senior year. And shout out Mrs. Anglers as well. But that was the first year that we had kids that had graduated, promoted from SV, and we invited them back as seniors to come and walk the campus. The whole school comes out. We celebrate them, clap. They get to reconnect and see all of the teachers, the school again, and kind of have that closure for many of them who went K through 8. So it is a really cool thing, new tradition that we've been doing for a few years now. But like you said, this was the COVID group. This is the year and it was a crazy year for you and I, as far as like things were just clicking. We just were on a roll. We had started our esports. I believe we had done Rubik's Cube that year as well. We were just about to do AstroCamp. I mean, all of the things. It was just a really, really amazing year. The announcements crew was just thriving, booming.
We just won the Diamondbacks grant, had like that huge celebration with all of those kids, with Diamondbacks players, the CEO from the University of Phoenix.
Yes.
Like, I mean, we were, as the kids say, let him cook in her.
Yeah, it was an insane year, and we're just in that zone. And then COVID shut everything down, and those kids, it was like, poof, turned off the light and everybody scattered. Like, as much as they were connected, that was really tough because they never got that closure. We never got that closure. So to have that group come back and see, they did great. They thrived. They persevered, and they came out the other end stronger for it. And it's a very tight-knit group, and we had a huge turnout. Actually, even less than we could have and should have, based on some kids' availability and then us just needing to do a better job getting the word out. But to see those kids come back, I mean, you're right. I was just beaming, and to have Mrs. Bonham next to me, and we're checking kids in, and it was just genuinely, we were so happy to have our kids come home. Kids that I am and forever will be close to: Lincoln, Summer, Ellie, North, just so Brady. Like, it just goes on and on. Kids that I just have really enjoyed watching them through their journey of high school. And it's the coolest thing to see them come back and do that walk one more time. I know for you, you had a lot of kids that you were close with. I mean, the Gillis triplets, 2 of 3, not too bad, were there. It was such a high.
Yeah, and I mean, just like Brady came back, was helping you with the Rockets, and we got him back on the announcements, and that was such a cool moment for us to kind of have that, the final, and 2 of his younger siblings still attend, and he went on with another, Isabella Perry, to do the announcements at Mountain Ridge, which is so cool that they kind of took what they started at SV and kind of did that, and we always say, like, how lucky we are for these small little moments in time.
Yeah. And, and just having them there. So when you said it's not really about your 8th graders, it's true. However, like you were saying, my kids did have that, like, feeling weird, like, well, where do we fit in? Like, this is our class. Because the seniors always end up kind of congregating in my classroom, because that's the final leg of all the classrooms that they walk through. And then it's just their nature to just have that realization of what they just did, because they go through that special door, the door of doom, that you can't go through until you promote from 8th grade. And so it just kind of hits them right there. So it's a lot of feels, and they hang out. And then it just made me realize, which I told you, that I want to have that be an intentional stopping spot for them, where they can sit, and there'll be yearbooks for them to look through, and snacks, and just, a bunch of seating for them, just to welcome them and say, you are back home. Like, you are once a Viper, always a Viper, and intentionally have that space for them to just kind of process in that moment. And it was really cool, because I kept their time capsule letters that they had written to themselves. And in the past, I would give that. So my first, I think, 2 years, I had them write them at the beginning of the year, and then I gave them to them at the end of the year. But it was not enough time removed, and so I didn't like that. And so for that group, the COVID group, I had intended to send them to them. But that's because, the senior walk wasn't a thing. So it didn't even occur to me. So I had collected those and had kept those, and then COVID hit, and then I've just been holding them, which is so weird, because, like I said, we didn't have the senior walk, but I just knew, okay, I'm going to do something special with these, on their senior year. I'll figure it out. So it worked out that, I had that groups, and seeing them recount things that they had written about themselves to themselves was truly one of my favorite highlights from that whole experience.
Yeah, you were emotionally drained from it, and you were kind of shocked how hard it was going to hit you as a teacher, but also those kids, like, walking in that door of doom and just being back on campus. And 2 news crews were there, did some awesome pieces, kind of celebrating Coach Conley, and all those kids coming back and kind of getting that little piece of closure. Now, another thing that you wanted to go into last year so much, talk about, like, that COVID group and how close pre-COVID you were with that group, was the SEL aspect. And for those listening, that's like the social emotional learning aspect of, what we need to do for teachers, for our administrators, for our students post-COVID, in this COVID world. And next year, the big drive, I think, for our district is going to be emotional intelligence. And I still don't know really what that means. Can you tell me what emotional intelligence is?
Well, honestly, I'm not sure that I have a clear definition that other people would say, oh, that's it exactly. But I think the gist is it's very linked to social emotional learning. However, it's infused with those soft skills that we've talked about. So it's that emotional intelligence that allows you to function in, your future lives, your current lives more effectively. So the way you communicate, the way you problem solve, the way you collaborate with others, and self-regulation and self-efficacy, autonomy, all of those things, I think it's kind of an infusion of, yes, being in touch with your feelings, but then also kind of strengthening those social skills and soft skills so that you are more effective and have a more harmonious and productive life in the future.
Wow. Okay. I mean, we just need the applause button for that.
I could be way off, but that's what I see it as, and that's what I intend to be doing.
Color me impressed, my friend. That was awesome. Now, so tell us about how you went into this last year with these 8th graders and why it was so important for you to build those relationships again.
Well, I feel that the year after the COVID group, so that was my son's year, and
incoming seniors.
Yeah, incoming seniors. And that was a really tough group for me because we didn't start on campus that first quarter. So, that first quarter is so crucial. It sets the stage for your entire year, your expectation level. But just honestly, the big thing is your sense of belonging and your sense of community, that classroom culture. And that's really difficult, especially when, I would believe as a nation, not just our district, but there was no academic accountability. We were still in that mindset of, you can't make them do things, and they knew that. And so it was a really difficult year because as a teacher, you're kind of, in a weird way, kind of this mix of a nurse, because you had to do all those podding or whatever those were, different groups that they had to cluster together, and you're constantly cleaning and keeping track of who's been exposed to who. So you have that nurse aspect, and then you also have kind of like a ringmaster at a circus, because you're just trying to keep them entertained, because there's not a give and take with that. There's not like I'm going to kind of empower you to do this and then you're going to do your part, and it's a two-way street. We removed that year, which was very difficult. So I couldn't connect with the kids on the same level, and they were so squirrely because they were limited to, for seating in the cafeteria. It was really regimented, and they were in these little spaces out on the yards. They couldn't be, engaging in a lot of the stuff that they typically would to blow off all that energy. So you have a ton of these kids in small confinement, and it just produced kind of this Lord of the Flies feeling where it was difficult to create that sense of community that I really was craving after COVID. Then the following year, we saw a lot of apathetic situations, and then just a lot of behavior problems that we really, because parents kind of had to let the reins go because of COVID. We really hadn't done a good job in the home or at school figuring out how to address these new situations that were coming up, and what our process was going to be, and how we were going to kind of modify things to kind of bring everybody back together and, kind of simmer down everyone. I don't know. That's just how it felt. So those years were it's such a departure from where, I began and where I intended to go as far as SEL and connecting. And then the year after got a little better, but I told you, this is the year that I have to get it right. This is everything to me. This is where I feel my heart is. So, some of that was me and a lot was the kids. It was their openness to create those moments. And so I just really tried very hard to think about, as kids, because a lot of them were really, really scared for 8th grade. So how am I going to make sure that this year is a year that they'll never forget, that it is going to be their favorite year? And as a K-8, it should be their favorite year. I mean, besides kinder, you can't beat kinder, right? And it's where you begin, and then it's where you end, because you're the leaders. You should have all these opportunities. You have so many privileges and perks, and you are the top. So I tried to find a lot of things to really highlight and kind of promote that sense of you guys are the top. And so, I worked hard to do lessons with them that were super interactive, but then like my homeroom, that's where I really feel like I had a teeny tiny little homeroom group of kids, and it was a really interesting mix of kids, like not necessarily people that were friends outside of that classroom. And I started a tradition because of two of my girls, Azul and Hannah, shout out to you, where they wanted me to ask a question at the door. And that changed a lot of stuff for us with how we created a culture in our own classroom. And it was a different question every day. And it was, some days it was, what was your favorite color? And then some days it was, what's your greatest fear? And they ranged from all over the gamut. And my kids grew to expect that. And I only did it with them. And I got to know my students a lot better. They got to know one another better. And I just tried to kind of do lessons and create moments where kids could see each other, get to know one another, and just really value who they were in there with. And any kind of problems that arose, girl conflicts throughout the year, things like that, relationship dynamics, I tried to sit down with kids and talk about the big picture and trying to see things different and going forward in a different way than we have, in the past, where you kind of shift their focus and try and make those things positive. And it was just a lot of different things. Class playlist was a huge thing that was very important to the culture of each class period. So I feel I will never forget this group of kids, because what they allowed me to do for and with them, but what they gave me in return as far as complete vulnerability in a lot of ways and just being 100% present.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot to digest there. And I saw it, I saw how excited they got with the questions at the door coming in, and you giving them that autonomy, that freedom to kind of come up with this and guide the lessons. I remember a couple of years back, you had students come up with the lessons, and I know this past week, a lot of the time you worked on was doing these SEL lessons, and you're so excited going into this next year of, just teaching the kids how to show empathy, how to be people, and, these things that might have been lost, and in this post-COVID world where we're headed.
Yeah. And I am super, super excited because I feel that I got so much as a teacher out of the climate that the SEL focus created. And then to be able to further heighten what we can bring to the kids skill-wise and experience-wise with Mrs. DiCarlo, who will be doing her second year at SV. And that is a huge, huge strength of hers. And I'm going to learn so much. But I'm fired up because SEL, EQ, all those things, is very much just helping kids have more tools in their tool belt to function in the world. And that's interpersonal skills. It's, being reflective, setting goals. It's your mindset. It's being able to know how to chunk your schedule out and figure out how to navigate through just so much. And I feel that what we are on the brink of providing is something really different than what we've been able to do for our students before. And I feel like this is a missing component, whether or not it would have been necessary or as crucial pre-COVID. I think it would, but post-COVID, it is 100% essential. And I think it will be a game changer for our students in how they see themselves as learners, how they see themselves in their part of education and for their future. I think it's going to be a huge empowering thing.
Again, you're just blowing my mind with what you provided for these eighth graders and some of the letters that you got, like how much they meant to you. You still have, we're in the second week of summer, and you said you still have not read them all,
No.
and you're just kind of pacing yourself through them. But for them to be so eloquent with their words, and for all these things to mean, so much outside of the academic scope of the school day, truly meant the world to you.
It did. And, the high schoolers that came back, all year, they come back every year. I mean, I had students come back from freshman year this year. I had kids from sophomore year. And then, I don't know, maybe, I don't know about junior. I can't even keep track, and then all my seniors. It's really rare for the kids to say, I mean, I've had tons of kids talk about like, oh, I'm so glad you went over this. This really helped me. A lot of the biology things for sure, because that's the first thing they get in high school. Countless times kids have said, I'm really glad, or I revisited this and it was awesome because I already knew. Awesome. However, those aren't the things that most filled, in my heart. Is the kids that came back to say like, you've always been there supporting me. You've always believed in me, because like kids will touch base when they leave, and we all will write letters of recommendation and give them job references, and when they need community hours. But it's like beyond that, they just know that we're rooting for them. And I think that you and I both feel really strongly that we talk about this a lot, but we hold a line for kids at our school. We hold a line of expectation, and we help kids rise to meet that. We don't lower that bar. We don't lower those expectations. And kids that we have kind of, held that line and pushed, those are the kids that it's the most meaningful, because they know that we saw something in them and we expected more, and we helped them kind of take those steps to reaching their potential. And there's just so many kids that you and I talk about when we say like, oh man, we are rooting for that kid and we can't wait to see them as a success story. And we have so many of them in our lives.
Yeah, and the coolest thing is how many times we see them as pillars in the community.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's coach coming back to coach, or they're working, or they're, just sharing like, what they plan to do next. And a big thing for you is like as we try to bring more community partners back to our school in terms of like our STEM half days, and you're like, it's the students. They're going into these STEM fields already, and you want to bring those students back and be like, I did this here, and this is what I'm doing now. And I think back, I mean, there's just so much to kind of recount on the year. I mean, our school was a Cognia National STEM certified school. That was fun to kind of do that application process.
Fun's a strong word. It was a mixed bag.
with the post-COVID things that we're doing, and to receive that accreditation is huge. And we truly loved looking back of all the amazing teachers that we get to work with and the things they do to push students forward. Our STEAM night was probably our best STEAM night we've ever had. A lot of your podcasts were out there, and some of your students, I'd listen to some of their podcasts and they'd get so excited. But the coolest thing was them just talking about things kids talk about. And I even had my kids listen to some of them and about how they deal with things. And it was just so cool, and like how excited they get to use the podcast and equipment. And through your Fiesta Bowl grant, you bought more podcasts, so you just don't have one group going at a time. And those things are just so cool. But it's just those little moments. And my favorites, every time we take the kids to AstroCamp without their phones. We had Phil join us for our second trip to AstroCamp. It snowed on that last day, and with rising costs and how much work it does to plan an out-of-state field trip, where, we're getting older, and we've said, this is X amount of years left in it for us. And some of your eighth graders are so cute. They're like, you have to do this. Everyone needs to experience this. And it's just so cool just seeing those kids step out of their comfort zone, do these things, and just go to Idlewild, California, and have this experience with the eighth graders is always my favorite thing. And looking back and just how much, I mean, we went into a restaurant. I was wearing my AstroCamp shirt, and this hostess went to Legend Springs, and she's like, "That was just the best field trip."
Yeah.
And she's like, "That just made my whole night."
She
She's
just
like,
lit up.
yeah, like bringing back all those memories. And we always tell the parents this is something that they'll never forget, and just see the kids just be pushed. And this is the first group. They didn't get that. This group did not get their fifth grade overnight field trip, and it was so cool to give them that, and so forever moving forward, we won't have a group that hasn't experienced that overnight field trip kind of coming to us for AstroCamp. And it's just, those 3 days are just always the best 3 days of the school year.
Well, and I think, when we recap our year, my big focus was SEL and connections. And, it's like, it just naturally, I think it's weird because so many of the things that really made the year what it was were kid led. So the questions at the door for sure were kid led. The playlist, it was kind of a combo thing between the two of us. Some of our things that we incorporated on the announcements thing, like the Friday feels, like that was us for our ideas, but then, kids really took off with that. And I think about, what a big difference that made. However, your focus this year, you had a renaissance year, I feel, and yours was so much about giving, in your own life, but then also in your classroom experiences. And you had a crazy, amazing year with experiences with for all the grades, but I look at what you gave those eighth graders this year. Can you reflect a little bit on how you feel at the end of this year past?
Yeah, I'm in the second year doing this ASU ASAP STEM fellowship, which has been truly amazing, especially to go on that with some of my DVUSD comrades. And I still have some lessons to finish. They're due June 20th.
Full disclosure.
Yeah. So the teacher life never stops. You're always working. Your mind. One thing I was confiding you the other day is just a feeling of just being overwhelmed of not enjoying summer just because there's just so much to do. And you're always thinking to next year, things that are due on June 20th. And, but through this, like I was able to do CO2 dragsters. I mean, the kids are sawing total wood shop. I mean, they're almost like little rocket cars. They have CO2 cartridges in them. The mini golf you think of with the last bond, there's been a computer science initiative K-8. So all these new resources being pumped into our campus, and just more tools in our bag that, for X amount of years, we'd have to write grants, and so you just see the importance of what we've always envisioned in terms of, getting people excited about podcasting, robots, rocketry, 3D printing, laser cutting. I mean, you name it, just as educators, just kind of being cutting edge. And it's just fun to see kids doing these things, and I could not be more excited about the future, and it's as education is going to change, and that's just how the world has always been with AI and embracing things. And we every year we strive to be better and grow in our craft.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool how I feel that you always do a really good job connecting K-8. But eighth grade, for any specials teacher, can be the most challenging or it can be the easiest, right? Seventh and eighth can be that, and it's really a trick about getting them dialed in, deciding that they were going to let their guard down and do it. And I not once walked into a class of yours where you were having to talk kids into being excited about STEM. It just was so prevalent throughout all of the classes that you interacted with. And I think that is such a testament to how you approach this year and the level of commitment that you had to give these kids a year to remember, but they just they dove into every single thing that you gave them, and it was just so cool and I felt this way about this group too. They didn't do things to a high level because they had to, they just were so excited to. And that's one thing that I take away from this year's group is the level of effort and the quality that they put out was sometimes really emotional for me. Like I would tell you, I'd be grading something and I would be so emotional, whether it's like a PSA that they nailed or, some kind of there's just so many things. And as a teacher, it's hard not to hoard things. And when you have these stellar examples of work that people have, put so much effort into, it's so hard because you don't know what to do with them all. You want to save all of your gold standard things. And there was just classes full of this. And, as a teacher, I'm pretty excited about what the potential is there for academics and that level of rigor that we can start kind of tapping back into as teachers, where we kind of had to put a little bit of let our foot off the gas. But our school on the brink of really starting to be about major infusion of STEAM again on our campus and in just our school community. I'm really excited about how that partners so beautifully with SEL and EQ and what that's going to mean for us as teachers too.
I just processing it all, and it's been good to kind of look back and trust us. We did not do a good job podcasting this past year, and
we were very sad.
Kind of celebrating our journey as teachers, but we like to put this out there for to get people excited about educating, and we always need great educators. We get so excited when we hear former students or people who are thinking about going into education. We're like, it's such a great time. We need more educators, and we always want to be the voice for the positive spin on education and uplifting those thinking about going into education and just getting people excited about the things that we're excited about. And we know that we geek out about things that the normal teachers would not geek out about, but this is our passion. This is what we both truly believe we were put on this planet to do. And, there was moments throughout the year where just listening to the kids podcast, we're like, these are so good.
Yeah.
You wanted to have like a podcast that kind of, was a school podcast that would run throughout the course of the year. And that was so cool of just an idea. But then we'd get this thing from this company and be like, oh, you're in the, top 100, number 14 of, podcasts in Arizona. Then it's like, you're the number 4 education podcast in Arizona. We're like, we haven't even put it out an episode,
which broke our heart, but also excited us.
Yeah. We haven't been churning out episodes like we should. And so those things are fun. And, so those things are the things that we're like, wow, people are listening to this and we haven't even been staying up on this. So this summer we were dedicated to telling our story as teachers. Are we on summer break? I mean, you've worked all last week, technically this has been the second week of summer here, and we're recording our first podcast here to kind of get us into that mode of this is something that we're passionate about and we want to bring it back.
I just wanted to say 2 things. Number 1, this summer, as maybe at the end of summer after we've had time, but I really would like to do an episode just focused on some of the SEL kind of ideas, so that if that's something that you want to bring to your classroom, especially at a middle school level, that is a passion for us to kind of meet that need. But I did want to say the district did a great job. When we say, we're not really on summer yet, but putting together this summit, and it was for all, for teachers.
PLC Summit.
PLC's
Professional Learning Community.
And it was awesome. It was awesome. I got so much. It was really meaty, and it was a good use of my time as an educator, and I got really familiar with some tools. And so I was really thankful for the district making that space for us, making that time, and really putting together a high quality program for us. And the other thing that I wanted to say is while I was there, I saw Holden, which we gave a shout out to, I don't know, maybe a year ago when we ran into him to Target. He was going to get his teaching degree, and I believe he just finished his first year at Ridge, and I saw him there at the PLC Summit, and I just thought, man, it is the coolest when you see new educators getting into the profession. We felt incredibly honored to be part of any part of his journey towards that, and we were so touched that he listened to the pod. But okay, he's finished a year. Still, he looked very dapper. He was dressed very, very dapper.
Shout out to you, Holden.
Holden, we just want you to know we're proud of you, and we're excited to hear about your journey. And maybe if time allows, we could have you on and hear about how things have gone, because high school is a totally different beast, and that's pretty awesome.
Up to the high school teachers.
Yeah,
Shout out
to you for sure. For real.
Yeah. All right, people, we're going to wrap up episode 69. As we always say, if you can be anything, be kind. All right, if you're on social media, you can follow me on X. That's also known as Twitter. That's the new name for us. You can search me up at Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.
And me at a positive proton.
And we're also on the TikTok, the Talk Tick. You can search up the I.C.C. or Christy Scofield. And if you like this podcast, you can buy us a coffee and buy me a coffee. Search up Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.